I want to talk to these guys because they all come from very different types of traditions and different types of working processes, and to learn a little bit more from them about. So what we saw a lot of today was very technical stuff, right? Like the nuts and bolts and the details of the devices and the way you organize your Ableton live sets. But what I want to get to is something sort of more heady and above that, which is the actual nature of how you make a song using that stuff. So one thing I noticed that kind of ties all you guys together is that you seem to all start with rhythm, right? Like drum seems to be the place where it all begins for you. Can you talk a little bit about why that is? I mean, I think in your case, Meyer, it's quite obvious you studied percussion.
Yeah.
But what is it that makes drumming the sort of essence of the beginning for all of you?
Never mind.
No,
Yeah,
go for it. Go for it.
I guess it's like
It's very loose conversation.
It's sort of if you've got like a groove to start with, then it's always good to start with a groove. I've sort of always like pulled like drum breaks out and sort of had a look at them and been like, oh, what's like going on here, and sometimes it can go from there. But I guess it's sort of it just sets a vibe, doesn't it? The tempo and that. And
is the process different if you don't start that way? I mean, one thing you were saying yesterday, Meyer, is that because you come from this tradition of drumming.
Yeah, it is because like I said yesterday when we were having the conversation, that I'm trying and planning to work the other way around, like starting with the melody and then getting into the groove, because I've been doing that for years now. Starting with the groove and getting into the beats first, and then working on the melody part of the track, and then getting into the rest of the things. But so I have to actually like relearn myself to like work on the tracks if I'm working the melody first and then the beats and the grooves. But it's just natural that the groove comes first to me. So I just stop myself and not think about grooves, because I know that okay, I'll figure that out in like less than what I could figure out for a melody. So less time. So I mean that's how I've been relearning myself to work the other way around now.
You mean starting with melodies.
Starting the melody first and then the groove.
And Zach, what about you? It seems like you have a very systematic way of working.
For me, I think it comes down to the style of music that I make. I mean, I think of myself as making beats. And it kind of, it's sort of drum focused music in a sense. The kick is like a really important part of it, and I think also when you start with the drums, it's not, I mean, you can also start with something else as well, or like sometimes I'll do sound design with just synths and not record any drums and record a big long session, but only once the drums kind of come together does it start to feel like, okay, now I've started a song. Otherwise it's sort of just sound design stuff.
So what we saw from all of you in your presentations was how you begin. Can you talk a little bit about how you finish? Like, what is it that brings a song to the end?
that can sometimes be like the hard bit.
Right. Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I would say it's tough, but depends a lot on like the time of day for me. Like mornings are really good and state of mind also. Like it helps really to be like totally sober and to be like not tired, and then to just focus in, because it allows you to see sort of more the whole track as a whole, versus sort of getting maybe lost in like one tiny part or like a loop, you know?
Yeah, for me, I think it's I'm more of a night worker, so I work in the night a lot, and it's kind of I think I just stick to a track for a very long time, and then I just leave it for some days, and then I go back and then see what I can do with the end part of it, because it's like you've already done so much of work with creating process from the beginning to the end, and then you actually have to sum up the whole thing at the end of the track basically, and what you want to like showcase in the whole track is where the end comes in and how you want to end it. So I think you need to have like that relaxed time of your own, and you have to chill a bit to go back and end the track, and that's what I usually do. Like I do the whole track, and then at the end I just leave it for some time, and then I come back and then end it.
You said you work on one track for a long time. What is
Yes.
a long time for you? I think it has a different concept for different people.
Well,
Is it like 3 days or
Yeah.
3 weeks or?
3 days to
3 days.
4 days,
Okay.
on a track.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm just thinking about it. Like, I've got this sort of habit where I sort of maybe try and trick myself into thinking it's finished by, if I've worked on something, like I always have to like sort of do like a working bounce, which to sort of take away and listen to, like if I'm walking or in the car, to sort of make me think what I need to do to finish it.
Yeah, I do that too.
But I do that like for such a long time that when it comes to the point where I think I need to do the things, I try them and they sound dreadful because I'm so used to listening to this working bounce that maybe sometimes it's finished. I don't know. I've been listening to it now for 4 months. If I do anything, I'm going to probably ruin it. And so sometimes, yeah.
Do you think this is because you take yourself out of the producing context and into the listening context?
Yeah, I think
this-
you've got to if you want
I
to.
think so too as well.
Yeah. And maybe like sometimes play it to people, but I don't care what other people think.
Yeah,
You
no,
must a little bit though, because you play it for them, right?
I think it also helps if you listen to some other kind of music. If you, for example, if I'm working on a drum and bass track, I'll go and listen to some ambient music, and might get inspired by something which might end my track, which has nothing, like no relation to it, but it just get me some vibes which I think that can add there, or you can end it with something like that. This is just like I've worked on a couple of tracks and it had worked for me for different times and different like timings for me. So that's how it works sometimes. I'm listening something totally different than what I've been producing, and then I go back and I'm like, okay, so I mean, for me, the I think the core of the track always matters a lot, because there's always a structure of any kind of a track you work on from start to finish. So it's like if you're working on like an ambient track, ambient chill out track, and the structure for that track not necessary to be the same what you're working on a drum and bass track, but the core of it, like the language of it can be the same. So that helps. I don't know, it just comes to me because I'm having the learning of that classical music. So I just calculate things in my mind according to that okay, this is used like this in this, and this is being ended like this with this kind of a sound which was used here in the middle of the track, which was highlighted really great, and then he has used it. So I might use that thing in my track or
So
something like that.
structure for you comes out of referring to your training.
Yes.
I see.
Yes, a lot.
Yeah, I would also say that for me it really helps to finish a track if I just finish it kind of in the first pass of working on it. So like instead of like working on a song and then working on some other stuff and coming back to it a week later or something, just like really push myself in that first or second day to like get the whole thing out and just get the whole time out. And then like you can always do like some mix adjustments later, but it's so easy I think to like sort of start something and then try to come back to it, and you're just not in the same headspace, and it's like really tricky to sort of like come back to it from a fresh perspective. And so just finishing it in the first session of working on it.
Yeah, I think like I'm a big fan of sort of like if it's not really happening in like the first couple of hours, it's probably not good. Like I sort of have these big bursts of like maybe 4 hours or maybe like a day, like just for one thing, and then I sort of tell myself I'm going to have to work on that, and sort of just through spending time not working on it, I sort of it can help like finish, because I guess it's like it's that kind of demo thing. Like I think we all kind of, I know I do sort of like to demo stuff, and then with the endeavour of finishing it, but sometimes that doesn't always happen. Maybe I think what I'm saying is sometimes you don't always need to finish stuff; it is finished.
Okay, interesting.
Sometimes maybe.
Yeah.
You mean things finish themselves? Or?
Yeah, I think especially with electronic music where you've got so many options and so many sort of it's boundless things that you can do. Sometimes like if it just sort of comes out in like one day, maybe that's all it needs, and sort of chipping away and filing it down or whatever is okay, but maybe not always. I think we just sort of tell ourselves we need to do it.
Yeah.
So we don't always.
This idea of boundless possibilities that you just brought up, it's interesting that you two, in your demos, you have actually a somehow analogous way of working, right? You build these drum racks that have 16 pads, and that is your sort of frame of reference. I mean, you're working now with these 64 pads too, but you had a really nice quote in your talk where you talked about limiting yourself to one space to open up possibilities.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. The idea, I mean, there's a chapter in the book where I talk about arbitrary constraints, the idea of building a frame for yourself and then pushing against the walls of that frame. Because it's true, in the computer, like, anything is possible. You could have a million plugins, each of which makes some variation of a sound. But do you consciously, it looks like you two do, consciously decide on a set of restrictions before you begin the songwriting process, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, before I got really into Ableton, I used to do it all on like a digital 8-track.
Mhm.
So I only had 8 tracks,
Right.
and it's definitely sort of rubbed off. And so like if it starts to get more than say like 16, then I'm like, oh no, I need to sort of back off.
Because it's too much to keep track of, right?
Yeah, and it's overkill, and yeah, I think sometimes you should put these little rules on yourself, like no more than 16 tracks.
So you didn't address that in your in
Yeah, I
your
never do
talking
that.
call.
For me, I've noticed that if you listen to my catalog of, say, I don't know how many songs, but what I've released till now, it's like they all sound different because I always like to use something else which I've not used before,
Mm-hmm.
and I make sure that I don't use the same sound.
Make sure you don't use the same
Yeah,
sound.
same
Okay.
sound or anything which I've used before, because I get scared after a point and I get bored easily with the things which I do. So for example, if I start a track and half a day down, I'm done with almost 5 tracks in that same palette because I'm bored with something and I know that I've done this before.
Mhm.
So I'm very conscious about that when I'm doing something, it shouldn't sound what I've done before.
Mhm.
So I always change palettes, or I change sounds, or I change something which I've not heard before. So I like surprises all the time, which surprises myself and the people who listen to my music. So I don't know. I mean, the process may be the same, but the sound structure or what I use is always like I don't do it consciously. It just happens that I don't like something which I've done already.
Sure.
Kind
What
of
about
thing.
you, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit different when I'm producing. Like, the stuff that I shared today is very specific for sound packs, but when
Right.
I'm producing, it's sort of a different game. And yeah, recently I have this drum machine that we can also load samples in. I just tell myself, like, this is how I do my drums. Then I have, like, the sub 37 that I use.
Mhm.
I'm like, this is what my bass is. And then I have maybe room for one other thing, but I try to keep it as few tracks as possible. I record the drums in as a stereo bus and just try to keep it, as like few tracks and as limited sound source, but make sure those sounds are like as good as they can be.
And you decide this before you even begin writing the track.
Yeah, I've like evolved a lot, and I think I used to do like way more tracks and automation and stuff, and I just got really tired of it, like of automating and overproducing as well.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
I think you can overproduce to a point where it's almost like putting auto tune on the whole track, like as a singer would be. You know, it's like you have every little swell and little shimmy and chime and EQ, and everything fits perfectly in its place, but it's like kind of can lose something in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, I've been kind of like, but that's just a personal thing. I think everybody has their own taste, but I've been kind of coming back to a more like limited, raw approach.
So Meyer, one thing you talked about was how you can hear patterns from your tabla training in your head, and you translate this tabla language into the electronic world. Does the process also go in the other direction? Do you take things from the sort of strains of electronic music that have nothing to do with the classical tradition and then apply those to the tabla?
Yeah, that's how I started actually playing when I got these two things together, which is electronic music and tabla.
Mm-hmm.
And I started performing live, because that's what I showed today when I used to make beats using my tabla patterns, and then I used to play tabla on top of it. It used to clash.
Right.
And that's where I figured out that, okay, then this is not gonna sound good because I'm just clashing each other sounds, like all the sounds are just clashing. So I had to figure out a way of playing tabla which is not 100% pure classical, but a way of playing tabla which sounds like a groove pattern with the beat or with the track which I produced, so that it sounds like one track. And so I had to work around way, like in the terms of like think different and not play the same beat. So yeah, and I changed the way of I was working around the whole track and playing tabla with it. So I play different stuff on tabla and the beat is something else,
I see.
but it sounds one groove when it's playing.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you guys also come from sort of studied music traditions as well, or?
Yeah, I play guitar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
For a long time.
And you also play guitar, right?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's pretty much where I started. Yeah.
Right.
That's sort of where my musical literacy is.
And does that stuff,
Yeah.
for both of you, does that stuff inform the kind of pure electronic music that you're making now?
Not really, actually.
There's no connection.
It's kind of. I mean, sometimes I try, but I mean, it might be a good place to find ideas, but actually, it's quite a good place for me to get away from it.
You mean
sort
if
of.
you burn out on electronic music, you grab a guitar,
Yeah,
sort of shake out?
and the other way around.
see,
So like,
okay.
I'm sort of. I can't really get them to mix really, so I sort of have them at opposite ends of the room.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I would say for me, it just developed my like ear for music. I don't play guitar as much these days. I felt like I wanted to do more variety of sounds,
Mhm.
but it definitely informed my sense of melody and rhythm, and the finger drumming also is. I mean, it's kind of like my guitar version of electronic music.
You mean the patterns are similar to?
Well, yeah, just the idea of like playing something in,
Mhm.
you know, instead
Sort
of
of dexterity.
yeah, the
Right,
dexterity.
okay.
Man, it's a little like piano or guitar
Sure.
or any instrument really,
Mhm.
but the idea of taking instrument, putting it with electronic music, kind of.
So do they have hobbies outside of the music process that gives them a break,
Yeah,
and then they can go back into
It's a
music?
benefit to do that, to just switch up
Yeah.
and do something different.
Just like I have a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Sometimes just watch, Netflix or go for a walk, but then I'm back to the studio.
Mm.
Or jamming with her in one of your
Yeah,
rooms.
jamming with her sometimes. Yeah.
I do have I do graphics for my own like releases and stuff, so I do designer stuff as well. Anything related to art I'm really fascinated about, and I'm just like looking forward to it and like try working hard to. It's not just music, anything related to that. So yeah, I love doing that. Either I'm making music or creating something or like yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually really quite into motion graphics, and sort of. I mean, I like to fool around with Maximus P and stuff, not doing music at all. Like sometimes not even listening, just sort of just playing around with video but I'm still at the computer.
Yeah.
It's just a different piece of software or
Mhm.
something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Olaf?
Is a collaboration something that you use with other musicians to get out of like a specific, creative block? Because today we saw all your workshops and stuff, how you do it on your own. It's like collaborating with other musicians, something that you consciously do in order to get like a different mindset or like.
I do a lot.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm quite a little bit sensitive about my ideas, and if they get rejected, I'm like, ah. So I tend to sort of, but like I do like to, I sort of like to, obviously like jamming with people is like one thing. I don't know if I do so much of the sort of collaborative, the sitting both around the computer or whatever, or sort of sending stuff online. But yeah, I'm always like jamming with people. You've got to do that.
Mm.
Yeah, I've been collaborating like a lot of different artists all around the world, and I like it in that way more because I put myself into different challenges where my artistic like like a lot of different feelings the artist has in himself, they just grow as different parts in the terms of like there are a lot of artists who don't like some what you just said, like I had that thing in my thing is when I used to work with artists, oh, he's not gonna like what I'm gonna make, and what if he does like, I want that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
after when I worked with 10 different artists, that feeling just went away. This is just my personal experience, and then I'm like, okay, so if you don't like it, what do you think what we can do? And then I started working on it like more and more. So possibly it's like me working in a studio. If I don't like something, I change it, I again work on it, and I have 10 different versions of it. And then there is always a better version that we both like, and there's always a good collaboration there when we look at it that way. So I have practiced myself to work on that for years now, and yeah, I think it's a good thing for an artist to collaborate with different artists, because then you know how that person also works, and there is a lot of growth in that. That's what I think personally. Yeah.
What kind of collaboration are you doing, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I like collaborating with other producers, and we just use like a Dropbox to put the project in and then be like, yo, I just did some, why don't you take a stab? And also sometimes in person can be really fun, although I think it's more important in person that be also be a person that you like really work well with in a producing context. I think remote collaboration is easier to work with like anyone who you just like their music, because
You don't have to hang
the
out
actual workflow doesn't have to overlap.
Yeah.
Sometimes in person it can be tricky, like because it's kind of like there's only one input device really. So it's like you're either sitting there like yeah do that,
Go back one. No, forward.
put the backwards symbol, no take it out, no, I'm sorry. So yeah, but it can also be really good, and I think also it's really fun to set up a bunch of like live hardware, you know, and once you get some synths going and some MIDI and stuff, that's when it's really fun to jam with other people, because you can have like one person on the drum machine, another person on the synth, another person like mixing in samples. So I really like that stuff.
I think maybe like it can be, from my experience, like it can be a really good thing to not prep but spend quite a bit of time like chatting to the point where you're both on the same page about everything, so that when you go in it all just happens. You know?
definitely.
If you sort of go in without an idea of what you're going to do, then you're kind of going, well no,
Yeah.
and so I'm sort of quite into, you know, talking about it and talking about what you definitely don't want to do, and so that you can skip all that stuff when it comes to because if you are going to be like you know, just a bunch of guys around one computer, there's sort of logistics and things that you can get around if you've sort of talked about, okay, well you do that bit because you're good at that, and
Right.
I'll do this because I'm good at that or whatever. And yeah.
Any additional questions? We have a few more minutes.
As producers, the stuff you do not like doing, and how do you overcome it? Like producing to
I don't like automation. I don't like mousing. And my solution has been to stop automating. So, but that's just a recent development. I got tendinitis, I think. Well, I know that I got tendinitis, but I think it was from just excessive, just like, you know, too much automation. Just like, it's going in there, copy pasting. And I realized it was unnecessary. Like a lot of the times if something just comes in at the volume it's at, and it's just there, you know, it's good. I mean, it's like kind of what I was talking about, overproducing. I think there's like, you can go so deep with like doing little pans and flips and automations and all this stuff, but sometimes it doesn't actually add more, and where I can like reduce that, that's kind of what I've been aiming for. Yeah. But that's just me.
I'm trying to think. I'm not really too sure. I mean, I've sort of like bounced around like doing lots of things different ways, and every time I sort of try a new thing, I'm always sort of I'm not going to do what I did before because I've done that. So completely like think about new ways of doing it, and maybe that might be the thing that I hate doing. I don't know, but I think I'm with you. Sort of the really fiddly kind of stuff, and it's like going back to what I'm saying earlier. Is like trying not to convince myself that I need to do more work than I think if personally, like if there's tracks where I'm like I need to work on that, I'm like, oh no, I'll just get rid of it. It's just not worth the time. Like I'm just like very impatient, I guess.
I think personally for me, if I start eating properly when I'm producing, because I don't eat for like hours, and then I realize that, oh God, I skipped my lunch, I skipped my dinner. Then after that I just get annoyed with everybody then. And something goes wrong, and then somebody says you need to have your lunch, and I'm like, okay, fine. So yeah, that's it, I think.
We probably have time for one more question. Is that true? Trying to see in the back. Yes, one more question. Anyone? Yeah.
I'm interested in your DAWs you use. I find when I'm making music, it's nice to switch between one DAW to do one thing and another DAW to do something else. Do you guys do that, or do you have different software you have different mindsets in? It's something Dennis mentioned in his book, which I found particularly useful.
Yeah.
I used to do that back in the days when I was juggling between Reason and Ableton, when I used to rewire stuff. But then later on, I figured out that I'm just like, so I was making beats on Reason, and then getting my vocals and stuff, because editing was really fast on Ableton back in the days, as it was having that redrum on Reason where you used to program your beats, so that was easier for me. But yeah, later on I figured out that I'm just like mixing down everything on Ableton and then getting everything done on Ableton.
Yeah.
So then I started working on Ableton and producing stuff on. So yeah, I mean, I don't use any other DAWs other than Ableton now. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I switch it up by spending time on hardware and then going back to the computer. So sometimes I'm just sick. I'm like, I don't even want the computer on. It's been all day, and I'll just go to the drum machine and try to make some cool stuff or make good patches and get some loops going. Because you can do a lot with hardware. It's only kind of towards the end where you have to like lay it out and stuff. So that can be a really great way to get outside of the box and sort of refresh your, think about it differently as well.
Yeah, I think I probably just stay in Ableton the whole time, really. Like I was saying earlier, if I do sort of move away, it's probably not to do music, it's probably to do something else. I'm trying to learn Adobe Illustrator at the moment, so I'm sort of spending lots of times going, wow, circles.
Yeah.
I can make a square, and right, I'm bored of that now. Let's go back to Ableton. But yeah, I used to use Reason a lot. In fact, when I started doing my YouTube videos, it was all Reason and sort of just, look, you can feed back the reverb into itself and it goes, and I used to rewire everything, and it used to be a real nightmare. I used to like run everything in on separate, have 3 tracks for one instrument, and I was like, oh no, it's like too much. So yeah, I'm very much sort of, I like to be in one place, but also similarly, I've got like a different part of the room where I've got like my little Korg Volkers and like a little mixer and stuff, and so, but that's really just a sort of, that's more like a holiday.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm just gonna mong out with this, and okay, let's go and make some music. So it's different, sort of. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks so much for, both for your presentations earlier and for sharing your insights about creativity. And thank you all for coming. Thank the organizers for putting this great event together. One more time, I wrote this book. It's called Making Music. It's available in hardcover from the Ableton web shop and on the Amazon store and from iBooks as an ebook. If you have additional questions for any of us, I guess we're going to be hanging out a little bit. I don't really know, but they're kicking us out of this room. So thank you very much.